cocoon.
I can let them
Okay, now
know
we'll
that we're acting.
Okay.
be businesslike.
I think they're right now. Someone just got it. Chris got it. Yes.
There you go.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
You're talented.
So I don't know who designed this. I feel like a little old blue-haired lady looking through the steering wheel here. But
That's right, you all need boosters.
I know, we all.
Telephone book.
So anyway, welcome everybody to our brand new town council chambers. Okay, I'm going to ask you all, please put your faces on done. Okay. And before we start, I need to bring attendees in via Zoom. So now we have our council member, Mary Hanson. And yes, and we also have town attorney, Andrea Urbanna. Mary, would you like to state why you are zooming in?
Yes, I am zooming in from San Diego, California, where I am supporting my children with cancer treatment for their infant son. And I hate to say it, it's 85 here today.
Hey, we had a beautiful day today. It was like 60.
Oh, nice.
We'll take it.
It's not bikini weather, but we. Okay, so let me see, I'm going to ask for a motion, someone in the council to accept the,
So move, please promote participant.
thank you. Have a second,
I'll second.
okay? You got a,
May I make a request?
yes,
Is there any way you can increase the audio? I'm having difficulty hearing all of you. I can hear Andrea fine, but I don't know, Andrea, are they loud enough for you?
I can hear them.
I can barely hear you. I
Okay.
don't know.
our audio system in yet, so we're doing the best we can, and Martha's trying to
Okay.
ramp it up, I guess.
I'll concentrate as best I can.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we have a motion to seconded. Marjorie?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Dr. Bill?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Ms. Bill?
Yes.
Mary doesn't get to vote on this, it's louder, Mayor votes yes. Thank you, we accept that you can be here. via Zoom. And Andrea can be here. Okay. I'm now going to call the meeting to order and take a roll call. I'll start out with Mary.
Present.
Thank you, Marjorie. Yes, here. Larry.
Here.
Bill Goldsmith.
Here.
Steve Holberg.
Yes.
Bill Smith.
Here.
Mary's here. Thank you. We also have via Zoom Andrea Arard. We've got Garth, Roy, and Martha also here from staff. Thank you very much. Let's stand for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so I'm looking at the agenda. And it appears we have a public comment period, but I want to talk about
Mayor, we need to have a motion first. Someone needs a motion to amend the agenda.
Okay. Motion to amend the agenda for contract, okay.
I would like to amend the agenda to add the following under closed meeting pursuant of Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711K29 for discussion of the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, including interviews of bidders or offers and discussion of the term or scope of such contract. Where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body water infrastructure contract.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All right, we will vote. Marjorie?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Mary? Yes. Okay,
Yes.
yes, and Mayor votes yes. Okay, motion passed. Thank you. Before I go into the next, printed thing, which is public comment, I do want to make, a note that I know that many of you are here to talk about the, Virginia Street Pier, which is down lower in the agenda. Thank you very much. And I would ask that, is it appropriate for them to make a public comment if it's about that at this point, or should we? Okay. All right. So at which time I will make another comment, but I have a number of people who have asked to speak, and we are starting with Sarah Jane Wyatt.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Sarah Jane Wyatt, and I have a lot of friends in this room, and my husband and I have had a home in Urbana for a little over 6 years, and we moved here from Bowler's Wharf because we fell in love with the town, its history, architecture, and of course, the water. The first time I came to Urbana in the mid-1980s with my friend Spencer Featherston, who's now Spencer Kirkmeyer, many of you might know her, she lives over in Irvington. I was here visiting her cousin Madge, and I was here for 24 hours, and I never saw any water. I was here overnight, and I was like, how can that be? This is a waterfront town. Isn't this what this is all about? So that was my first experience with Urbanna. My husband and I are in favor of the proposed docks and kayak launch. My husband Russell cannot be here tonight because he had to meet with clients. My husband is a partner with Commonwealth Commercial Partners, and he has over 30 years experience in commercial real estate. And as I talked to him about this today, we talked about it a lot. He said, you know, this is an unused property that's just sitting there. And as we like to say in the commercial field, why not turn it into a productive asset? That would benefit the community and all of our visitors. Being part of the Blue Waters Trail would enhance Urbana's ability to attract more kayakers to the area. The sport is one of the fastest growing in the country, and those who kayak are nature lovers who respect the environment. The average income of kayakers is $140,000 a year. This is based on the University of Tennessee study. 75% have at least a bachelor's degree, and 68% are homeowners. It seems to me these are the kinds of people we want to attract to our town. I believe enabling our visitors to better enjoy and share our town's greatest asset, the water, would be a boon for economic growth. Bringing in more people who will eat, shop, and stay here would be good for us all. Council members have spent a lot of time and effort in developing plans for the land, and I really appreciate your efforts, and I hope you'll vote yes.
Thank you. Let's see, Bill, you decided not to speak.
Last.
Then we move to last.
He's at the bottom of the list.
Okay, okay. Alana Courtney.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna be really quick.
My name is Alana Courtney. I live in Urbana. I think everybody here knows how I feel about this project. It's not that I object to a kayak launch for sure. I object to where it is. I feel like that piece of property should be left as something to honor Catherine and Beatrice. I think they're putting a pier when this town really wants a pool and their tennis courts back, and you spending $100,000 or more, which is what it will be, and it will, you'll ask me, but that's what it will be, and it will be not be something that we make money on, not that we have to make money on everything, but it will be something that costs us money because as this ages, it will only get more expensive. And I just want to say I'm totally against this project. In this place, at this time, we are in a recession. We don't need you to spend our money like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary Lister. Gary here.
Is she in the hallway?
Ask if Gary Lister's out there. Oh, she just walked in.
Hey, Gary, they're calling you. They're calling you, Gary.
Seriously? Yeah. I just called your name and you walked in. How about that? How about that? Councilor, public comment period.
I apologize for my lateness. I've already spoken here what I think about it. I think it's really important that this town not only protects the water rights of those of us who are lucky enough to have houses on the water, but also of the town in general. I think a kayak dock of some variation, and honestly, I'm flexible as to what it looks like, will be really beneficial to the town, not only to the town's citizens, but also for tourism. I think the tourists who come and kayak and value our beautiful nature, value the creek, value the river, are exactly the kind of tourists that we want to attract to Urbana. They're the kind of people who will love Urbana and love Urbana for what Urbana is. Not a small town with a McDonald's and all the facts, but a beautiful, well-preserved small town. And so as I said before, I think it's really, really important that the kayak dock be approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And again, my apologies.
Okay. Ron Courtney.
I'm Ron Courtney. I've lived here for 40 years or so.
Please speak up in the recording. Yes.
Okay. I'm Ron Courtney. I've lived here for a long, long time. And I've thought about this project a lot. I haven't really said anything about it, but there's a couple things that concern me. I'm really concerned about the policing of this, because in my experience, Urbanna is a town of mostly older people. You go to the post office, you go to the marketplace, I used to call it, to the grocery store. Most of the people there are older. They're not going to use this kayak plan. It's just not going to happen. They're not interested in that. They're too old for it. I'm too old for it. Not going to happen. It's going to attract a lot of people from outside of town on a temporary basis. Now, what happens if you're attracting them at night, like at midnight? How are you going to police it? I remember the problems we had with the playground a few years ago. Policing was impossible. There were some problems over there. We had to tear out some of part of it because it was attracting people that did not belong here, had no connection to the town whatsoever, didn't care about the town. They just wanted to use what they could get here for free. I'm afraid we're setting up something like that again, but we're attracting the wrong kind of people, both from the water and also from the land. There's no parking. The idea hasn't been well thought out, in my opinion, at all. I'm really opposed to it, and I think we should think very hard before we do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me see. Ricky, sorry, can't read it. Longest, thank you.
Ricky Longless, other than Bond Street. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am 100% against spending 70, 100,000, whatever, for this project. We have the town marina, which is a launch point. Oaks' Landing is just up the creek, and most people that would kayak would want to go up the creek. They're not going to go in the river. So Saluda Landing would be perfect for them. And also you have two large private groups, which would be Urbanna Harbor and Queen Anne's Cove, that those residents and their guests would use that as a launch point. So, I mean, you're just spending money for something that's not going to benefit. There's not going to be any revenue. And then if you get a kayaker, if you all go on your boat, what are you going to do when you go on your boat? You're going to pack your lunch. You're going to take a couple bottles of water. You're going to stay out there. That's what the kayakers are going to do. They're going to bring their bottle of water. They're going to bring their sandwich. They stopped at U-Crops in Richmond and bought it. And they're going to come down. And they're going to go in the creek and they're going to enjoy it. They're going to throw the trash in the can. And we've got to throw the trash away. And then they're back out of town, back to Richmond. Are they going to stop at any of the stores? Are they going to buy groceries at the store? No. It's not going to benefit our town at all. So it's just a waste. And we have a swimming pool that's been sitting idle for 3 years, 2 years, 2.5. We have budgeted money for the swimming pool that's sitting somewhere. this 70,000 could be added to that and continue the pool project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stand, please.
Thank the council for hearing me again. I did speak to y'all, I think it was August 26th, about the pier. And just want, I don't want to recap all my concerns that I went over then, but it was basically some of the things that have been mentioned: parking, safety, toilets, where to put your kayaks and that sort of thing. Again, I'd like to say, we have a town marina that's a pearl. Let's build on that. And rather than spend a lot on just one single pier, and also I do have concerns about the pier. In the packet, there's a drawing of this pier, but this drawing does not show any relationship to Latin Montague's marina or the slips on the other side at the condos. So as far as safety, I'm wondering, have we really looked at that? If it's close in, it's not going to be right. And also in the statement that we got, BMRC prohibits mixing of SPVs, motorized vessels. So you've got marinas on both sides of this kayak pier. Isn't that the same thing? That's my concern. Thank you for hearing.
Thank you. So Friday.
Okay, my name is Phil Friday. I've been living in Urbana for 42 years. 30 of those I spent on the planning commission and or on council. Spent 38 years running accredited Marines. I'm somewhat familiar with our waterfront. The proposal in here is kind of strange to me. When the town bought the marina, for better or for worse, I thought the subject of a pier would finally be put to rest, as the people now have a place to fish, boat ramp, and a dinghy dock for their dinghies, canoes, and kayaks, as well as parking facilities. In the last year, I've traveled extensively, New York, Michigan, the East Coast, seen many unused or very low traffic docks in little towns just like ours. It sounds good, it's a feather in your cap, but they don't get used. Specifically on Lake Ontario, there is a beautiful kayak launch site. I mean, aluminum slides. Oh. And while we were there looking at it, I took pictures of it. There was just a low dock next door and some kayakers came and launched from the dock. And I asked them, why aren't you using this? Because it's just easier to launch off the dock. So I just think it's silly. In the proposal the planning commission sent, which by the way didn't mention any funding, and it's supposed to in capital improvement project. You say many people wanted kayak dock, and then down at the end it said there's a need and there is a demand. Has anybody done the survey, or is this just we're assuming there's a need and a demand and many people want it? Anyway, paying for it would be very easy with a grant. But what about the upkeep down the road? I'm going to reiterate what I said last August. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. And an old maxim says, beware the politician who promises you a pie in the sky because he's going to use taxpayer debt.
Martha Lowe.
Oh, can I stand right here? Because it's just too hard to crawl on it. Barbara.
You don't want to crawl over these people?
No,
Okay.
and I have a loud voice anyway. Barbara, my sincere condolences.
Thank you.
Nobody wants to be a member of this club, and I'm sorry that you're joining us.
Thank you.
Honestly, wish I could tell you good futures for you. I know. I am not for this project at all. Most of the people in this room would love to have a kayak launch, just not where y'all are proposing to do it.
I think it belongs at the marina. And that's that.
Thank you. Louise Friday.
I would like to thank all of the council members for their hard work that you did for Urbanna. I don't know if you're appreciated or not. I am against the pier for kayak. I wonder who will police the new pier at night. Will there be more maintenance and staff needed, insurance costs? We already have a nice platform at the marina that's good for kayaks. Why not improve what we already have? We don't need this new pier to maintain, along with the existing marina and major swimming pool park project. Thank you.
That's just.
Hello, everybody. I'm Beth Justice. I live in the what used to be the Burton House on Watling Street. My family has been here since 1700. I can remember being here ever since I was born, on and off, but mostly on the latter part of my life. Everybody so eloquently who's opposed to this said a lot of reasons, and I agree with. There's no reason for me to repeat it. But I do think the money should go to the existing marina, to that area. We have parking there, we have bathrooms there, and it makes sense to not spend so much money on a new project when it should just go into what we already have. And with the pool being built, I think as much money as we can put into that, because we've been needing that pool for a long time. I used to work at that pool. So I'm opposed to it, and I agree with what everybody else has said, yes, that they're all right. And so I just want to put in my 2 cents.
Thank you. And Sturgill.
I'm Sandra Sturgill, live at 100 Oyster Road, and I thank all of you for hearing me again. I think you all know that I'm very much against the kayak ramp in that location, and I won't go into that again, but I think there is another proposal that has been discussed, and I think it needs to have some consideration. The waters at Urbanna Creek once flowed freely in and out of Jameson Cove by a natural channel that went in and out. The tide would come in and out. A hurricane destroyed that opening, closed it off. I think the waters, this channel was closed by the hurricane, and we need to consider reopening that channel. Then people could put their kayaks into Jameson Cove. They could teach their children how to kayak. They could teach young kids how to paddleboard. Then they could go out that channel into Urbanna Creek. It's a nice drop off. You can walk right straight out, get in your kayak, get on your paddleboard. We could take care of the canal there, that where the water goes in and out now. We could get that taken care of. It would cost nothing compared to what we're talking about spending. And it would be a better situation for kayakers, and it would be a safer situation by far. Someone will get hurt while you're in a boat. There are too many boats going in and out there. I know. I live right there. I have boats, and it's not a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. George Still.
All right, I've lived in town about 11 years or so, and this project's been talked about a long time. Long before I lived there, and basically this would be in my front yard. I'm opposed to it. I like the concept of what y'all are doing, but everything can be done at the marina, and a lot of money can be saved if it's done at the marina. I'm surprised with all the opposition that we're even talking about here at this point, but I just think that the money should be spent on other things.
Thank you. Must be Lacey, but.
B?
Then B.
That's me.
Yeah, okay.
Good evening, town council, mayor. I'll be real brief. I'm not gonna repeat what everybody else kind of said, but I think yes. I'm opposed to the project as well. I don't live in town, but I do pay quite a few taxes. One of the things that that really comes to mind is a safety issue. you guys are talking about doing it down there, maybe parking at the tobacco warehouse and people walking down that street, down that hill. That's a very narrow road it's closed in with hillsides on both sides. I don't think you need people, pedestrians walking up and down that road. People that have that those condos there, I've heard comments from them. They're adjacent landowners. They're opposed to it. The marina's right there. I think I talked to Garth about a proposal that I had to make a kayak launch work there at the marina, just changing up some of the stuff. And I don't think it's a good fit. It's a good idea, but I don't think it's a good fit for where it needs to go, where you want to put it. Just safety is one of my big concerns. I think you're just asking for some problems there. Thank you.
That is one of you.
Thank you. Mayor, I want to offer my condolences to you and thank everybody for their service in this room. I got to say, I was just really disappointed to hear that this topic has come up once again. This summer, we talked about it. There was an agreement with Mary that she would work with the neighbors to try to find a reasonable compromise. And then all of a sudden, this proposal comes out of the Planning Commission, kind of out of the blue as far as I'm concerned. And I guess I'll restate the issues that I have with it. One, I can't believe that we're talking about spending money on something with this much opposition. The town has so many other really critical needs. Number one being the swimming pool. Yeah, growing up here, spending 51 years in Urbana, nothing was more important to being a kid or a citizen of Urbana than that pool. I can't imagine we'd spend $1 on anything until we get that pool rebuilt. And second, if I'm just wrong and there's a strong desire to have an additional kayak facility or a place for the Luna, then this is not the right place to do it. It's the town marina, as Phil said, he put it perfectly. It's an ideal place. It's got parking, it's got place to unload, it's got deep water, it has space. We've hosted the Pride of Baltimore there. We've hosted the Alexandria for the Oyster Festival. It's an ideal place that we put additional resources into our town marina to host big boats and kayaks safely. If, interaction with powerboat traffic is an issue, putting them between my marina and the adjacent marina is a really, really bad idea. I think another reason why people are so frustrated with this process, and in my 50 years, I haven't seen a project raise this much frustration and opposition, except for maybe the Rosegill development, which didn't happen. I don't understand why this is coming up, but I think one of the reasons why people are so frustrated is people are trying to leverage Bill Hite's 10-year-old permit, a permit that was granted when Sandy Sturgill and nobody lived at the condos, when my marina plan was 10 years in the future. And it feels like we're being hoodwinked when people are trying to use this loophole of this antique permit that was granted to a different person for a different purpose a long time ago on a waterfront that has vastly changed since it was granted. And so I think that's why people are so frustrated that people are trying to slip this in using that rather than having an open public discourse about this. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Wanda Hilbert. And I'm also on the Planning Commission. I was born and raised in Urbana. My family's been here for generations. When I grew up here, there was lots of public access. You could walk along the beach, you could go down to, there were accesses to the river, there were, not Waterman's Park, but other ones. But eventually they've been sold off or they've been absorbed somehow. So now, this is the last piece of public access that the people in this town have, and a lot of them have deeded access in their deeds. And I think it's time we spend some money on everybody in town being able to enjoy living on the water. We've been kayakers for like 35 years. When you put in at the marina, now that it's been dredged, it is very dangerous. It's a 6-foot drop right off the beach. There are power lines hanging down under the dock. My neighbor's dog got hung up in them, and she had to get in the cold water and get the dog out. I mean, it's, and you're right in motor traffic
If you have the pier that goes out so that it is even with the other dock, you can safely go out. There are kayak launches in public places all over the Middle Peninsula. And, you know, Mr. Montague was told by the state to have a 14-foot setback next to our property to protect our project. Also, in the deeds of these neighbors, it clarifies in there that we have a dock that can be built there. I mean, why didn't you read your deeds? It's just, you know, it's a little frustrating to me that, and most of these people that are opposed to it already have waterfront, where the majority of people in this town do not. And they need and deserve to have waterfront access. Younger people, this is the kind of thing they're looking for. Families that can take the children out. You can have, you know, things for children at the dock. You could teach them water safety. You could teach a lot of things, you know, there at the front of the pier. That would be an asset to the town and the community. Things that these people would come in. It would be good for everybody. They would spend money. Yes, they would eat lunch. And, you know, I am really in support of this, and I feel like it should be a longer pier so that we have the ability to do a lot of things.
Thank you. Carol Williams. Carol Williams, been a resident for 30+ years, and I would just like to say, I thought the pros and cons have been wonderful. I get it. I personally do want to have it. I think it would be an asset to it. I think it is something that should be developed. I do understand there are a lot of problems that lots of people pointed out, different issues. But it belongs to the town. It should be promoted. I worked at the marina for a couple of years. So I have a little bit of knowledge of this, and I would just like to point out that there was an incident at the marina. Two gentlemen that were launching their kayaks underneath the dock. They were older. It was chilly. I don't remember the exact time of year, but I may have left it. I used to keep a journal down there, the things that happened. And the first gentleman who launched and got under that dock was just trying to lean back or lean over, and he literally capsized. It was fortunate we did have a number of boats there. Because there were a lot of people ready to jump in and assist this gentleman and get him out of the water. And it was cold. It was cold. I remember bringing some towels from our laundry at the time. But I think there is an absolute safety issue down there. Because when the tides are just right, it's, you know, when they're low, very easy to get out underneath there. But then you're also going out in between boats. So you're still blind at some point. And of course, when they're in between, that's the danger. As somebody else already pointed out, there are hanging cords underneath there. So there's a lot of maintenance that needs to go into the marina as well. But we have so little water access, and even county-wide, you know, public access, that those of us that are fortunate to live here, these little areas should be developed. Thank you. Thank you. Don Dreher.
I'm Don Dreher. I live on Overett Street, and I'm a former Red Cross water safety instructor. My son and daughter-in-law and my grandchildren kayak, and they went under the dock there, and I was worried for them because boats can't see them when they're coming out from underneath there next to the other motorized boats. But let me go on with the arguments for this pier, because I think it's a good idea. The town owns the property, first of all. No money needs to be spent on the land. It's not going to detract money from the pool. The kayak dock or pier would allow public access to the water for kayaks, rowboats, etc. It would be much safer than launching under the boat pier at the town marina. where visibility of the kayakers is limited, and the channel is usually busy with motorboaters who also cannot see the kayaks coming, as I've said. The argument that the bottom is unsafe because it has mud and oysters, rebar, and old engine blocks is specious. First of all, what bottom of the Rappahannock River in salt water doesn't have mud and oysters? As for rebar and engine blocks, I'd hope that the kayakers would be going over those, not stepping on them, if they are even in the creek there. Kayakers can simply drop boats off at the pier, park in the nearby town lot at the marina, and walk back to the pier to launch. Bathrooms are available at the town marina. Yes, it's a porta potty, but generally speaking, you know, kayakers don't care very much. They just want to use a porta potty. The dock master can assume management of the kayak dock, and a trash can can be placed there and emptied by town personnel. Kayak clubs would come to use the dock to explore Urbanna Creek. They would spend money in our town at shops and restaurants. They would learn about the history on the Blue Water Trail, which is already put together and just needs the signage, I believe. Young people in town would have something to do. There's not much for young people in this town to do, and that would be something that they could do. And it would be a nice location because this dock would be built as a floating dock. They would be able to get the canoes down there and launch them safely. Boaters on either side would have better visibility of them because they'd be coming off of that dock and they would know that there are kayakers coming off of there. So I think that this is something that we need to do, and it's long overdue.
Thank you.
And why would anybody launch a kayak to go under those docks?
Excuse me, you had your, thank you. Is Bill Height? Bill,
Yeah, are you ready for me?
I'm ready for you.
I think everybody knows who I am. My name is Bill Height. My family's been here a long time too, like 1665, so I guess I qualify. And also, we do have an issue here. Do you plan to close the kayaks away from the town marina? People that are going to maybe put it, have you all thought about running them all down to this little right of way? What you gonna do with it? What you gonna do with the ones you already got? My thoughts is that this is more a spite situation than it is a practical solution. Kayaks can be accommodating at that moment. I understand there are going to be some upgrades to the marina. I've been screaming for it, even for a sign to let people know that you could get temporary dockage while you go up and buy things from you, or whether you go to a restaurant or whatever. You've got Northern Next of Virginia sitting over there, you know, make it easy for them to come to Urbanna. But I think that economic improvements that this town is doing is absolutely wonderful. And I'm talking about this place, maybe even more of this place, who knows? Swimming pools. You know, I didn't have the beauty that Larry Tunin had to go swimming in a concrete pond, okay? I swam in that creek. And Chris Jones's daddy, Bill, was full ahead of me, throwing sea nettles out of the way inside of the net so you could dog paddle, okay? So I've seen it all down there. I know we have built a shoddy marina a couple of times. It's time for some change. It's time to get rid of the little narrow things that I get scared to even walk down to it. They need some floating docks so we can accommodate these 15, 18, 20-foot boats that want to come here to eat in our restaurants and do things. I think you guys are out of that, Steve. And I think the money that you could spend at the town marina to figure out something for kayaks would be a whole lot better than blowing the money that y'all are talking about. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our list of people who have signed up, and thank you all. You've all made meaningful comments and pointed out meaningful considerations, and we really appreciate you all being here.
Okay. Also, I want to let you know, I've heard from 9 different residents of Urbana, all against this pier project. I want that into the record. I gave their names: William T. Talbot, Brian F. House, Ken Puget, Mark Singer, Fritz and Pepper Human, Mike Jolly, and Gloria Dana.
Mark Singer has moved away.
According to his letter.
Oh, yes, the Lovelaces bought his property. He's gone.
The Lovelaces are for it.
Yes, they are.
It adds one to our list.
All right. So the public comment period is closed. Now we've already jumped into our response. So,
I was gonna say, since this whole public comment period was for the Virginia Street and Pier, document here, do we want to move that up on the agenda? Is that more appropriate?
I think, in my opinion, yes, I think we should move forward there, but I have something to say before we go there.
Yeah, I like your.
1 moment, please. So I know everyone was talking about a kayak here, and just so y'all know, the original thought of this really didn't even involve kayaks. That was a later add-on. That wasn't even the impetus for this thing. But it appears there are basically 4 options to be considered, and council will not make a determination on this, on which option it wishes to pursue this evening, because this is a workshop, and the council will be discussing the various options. Not all of them are kayak docks, okay? So the council will vote on this at the next meeting, February 24th, on which option to select. And this evening, each opponent or each proponent should discuss why his or her option should be the preferred one, to come to the public hearing for February 24th. And then at the public hearing, the proponent should again present their arguments after the public comment. The council can decide how to proceed. And so if you want to move into that now, let's see, the first one on here is Councilman Mulberg.
Yeah, first of all, there's another option, which is not listed here in the list. Okay. So you have one option that's 55,000. It's a 15 by 20 fixed pier and a 50 by 8 long pier. So those two components together are 55,000. There's no bulkhead required. Earlier, we were under the misapprehension that a bulkhead was going to be required between 2 properties. And Mr. Montague, I think we were thinking that we had to connect up somehow to something that you were going to make, and that's not the case. So $17,000 of the cost for doing a bulkhead is off the table. It's going away. Okay. So the cost of the project is option that Arthur took forward, option 2, is $55,000. And the option to make it a little bit bigger is basically okay, your 55 is 17. Okay, so your option without the bulkhead is not 55. Your option without
Right.
the bulkhead is $38,000.
Right.
Okay, so we're not talking hundreds proposed is 46 for the extra 10 people. So I'm just gonna throw that out. First of all, there's a common thread throughout the comments tonight. There's a basic misunderstanding of how the funding works in Marina and why it's important to separate, in addition to safety costs, but it's important to separate the function of kayaks and small craft away from the marina, and that has to do with funding. The boating infrastructure grant is what we rely on to fund improvements of the marina. Now, if the marina has lain fallow or improvements haven't been made in the last couple of years, that's because folks decided not to do anything about the marina other than modest maintenance. We have $136,000 worth, I believe, of additional money sitting there, in the state of Virginia, that, you know, in terms of gross spending, we can spend a gross of 136 to get a 75% match. And we have earlier in the year established a temporary funding line for our line of credit that enables us to fund a whole slew of improvements up to 136,000, so that we don't take that out of current cash. Okay, we basically borrow to cover the cost of improvements and then get reimbursed by the state 75%. So net out of pocket for whatever project Stark has in mind, whether it's finger piers or whatever, we've got that covered. The funding for the pool's gonna be separate, right? We've had 2 years back-to-back surpluses, unless Roy's gonna correct me on this, because we're still waiting to sell. But those surpluses have allowed us to grow our financial capacity to the point where we can spend $46,000 on something like this. So it's about financing. In talking with the guys that are in charge of the boating infrastructure grant program, they have recommended that in order to keep our funding for our town marina intact and in accordance with the original mission, we don't have kayaks and canoe launches mixed in with that platform. It's about financing. It's not about somebody's opinion about whether you can have it there. Now, as far as launching under the pier, I'll tell you who's launched under the existing dock. It's Steve Holbert's launched under it for about 20 years.
That was smart.
And I never had a, that great a problem as long as there were no boats in the slips. But the problem is, that's not what you want to have as your entree for general public to come and use and encourage tourism and have a safe place to operate. One person or a couple people operating, and you may plunk your head on the underside of the pier. You may take a spill that we've dredged it to a mean low water of 6 feet, and you can have an accident there. Here, it's safe. If we use a pier and we have the appropriate appendages to it, the accessories to it, grab rails, etc., it can be a safe place to launch. It can be a safe place to do some other things too, like have groups come for the Blue Water Trail, etc., etc. So that's why I'm still for it. I hear a lot of you objecting to it. The pool money is going to be there. We're going to have to finance the pool improvement. Okay, you're going to have to finance it. You can't afford to rob the Tabor Fund and strip it of its assets because it generates dividends every year. And we don't want to use current money for funding the pool. You go ahead and borrow it, and we can fund the debt service for that. So your argument that we either spend money on one thing or another kind of flies out the window, because if you understand the financing concept behind it, you kind of get what we're trying to do. We have an advantage here because we got the contractor on site in play, has given us a reasonable bid, and at a lower cost than we ever thought possible, because he's there and because he's using dock blocks technology, which is basically floating right on the water.
Mhm.
It's not like the tubs on the rest of the creek, where you have a tub and then there's the 12-inch or 14-inch drop before you get to the water. This is right on the water. It's 8 inches clearance. So it's a lot easier to step in and step out, or
Mhm.
launch and recover your kayak. So it makes sense. One of the things that I've observed over the years is that we were lucky enough to have the Hampton One Design Regatta, which last guy had 40 boats, I think, at the last regatta. And what he had to do was tow a floating dock over from the other side of the creek, tie it up to the ramp. Okay. Well, you know, you put this thing in, there's nothing to prevent Laffey from saying, hey, look, Hampton One Design Regatta is coming next weekend. Can I use the floating pier? There's nothing to say we can't say, hey, look, Laffey, we can work that out for you. That's just one example of a group that can take, can use this on a very temporary basis, but we accommodate visitors. It's more eyeballs on our van. And I know a lot of you think, oh, well, they're not going to spend any money on meals. Actually, they do. Based on Ms. Wyatt's comments earlier, the average earning capacity of the kayaks, the people who kayak, is pretty high. They're the type of people you want to have here. They're the type of people that would support this. So anyway, if you don't agree with me, that's fine. I'm just one person. I have been here since 1996. Wife's been here for most of her life. It's not like I'm an alien concept here. And I feel like I have a much different perspective than most of y'all do. And I'm sorry I don't have time to converse with each of you in greater detail about your concerns. But we're doing the best we can. All right, sorry.
Thank you, Steve. I have a comment on simply because someone else wrote this and they put me on for second. So my comment is nothing's going to be perfect. And let me just walk you back in history how we came to this. This was after Payne sisters were no longer in business, and their structures were in need of being replaced. And yes, there was Miss Latney did mention that the original permit was because of Bill Height and Lawrence Gisella came to town council, and they said, we've got a great idea. We want to keep this area alive, do something for the town. We're going to put a business on it. And the town council at that time thought, well, that's great. Instead of having an eyesore down there, we'll have something that's attractive to the town. They were all gung-ho. I'm not personally aware of how that thing fell apart. I just know that it did. I've heard some things that it might have had some chicanery involved, not on their part, but on someone else's part. I don't know that it's true at all. But when it fell apart and it was turned back to the town, to my recollection, the town attorney at that time, who was not the town attorney we have now, said we should never have granted that to these individuals without going before the town, because the town people might have had a better idea to do it open for everybody on town. And it was actually his idea that we come up with some other thing and go ahead and utilize the permit that was in place. So we all jumped on the bandwagon, said, what can we do with this thing? Well, and this whole kayak thing that everyone's talking about, I don't even know how it took that left turn, because that wasn't the original idea. The original idea basically was to have a nice long pier out there, about 80 feet, which would include the original 30 by 30 foot, and your original one went out 80. Yeah, 30 by 30 plus another 50, which took it out 80 feet. And that was to accommodate the watermanship, boats, things like that. So when that fell through and the Luna was taking shape, it was just a natural idea to say, this is the historic place where the ships came in the colonial days, and it was absolutely connected with the Scottish factory store, which everyone is still calling the tobacco warehouse. It was not tobacco warehouse, it was Scottish factory store, which is our town museum. That could actually be part of the museum system. And then it was brought to our attention also that on the entire East Coast, this is like the only place that is left to have a waterfront dock or pier that we could actually call in the movie industry to do filming there. They would green screen out the condos, and they could actually come in and have colonial waterfront views there. And imagine what kind of income and notoriety that would bring to the town as far as economic development goes. So the thing was to have it there so that we could invite, you can't go too big with these. I mean, you can't go any bigger than the Luna with these reproduction ships. That was basically the idea. And the idea was, hey, guess what? We could also launch kayaks from it. So then suddenly kayaks became the word du jour, and everyone just ran away with the kayaks and forgot about the original idea. So, and by the way, the town attorney at the time made sure, we went through all the permitting process at that time, and he made sure that any properties that were sold at that point understood that the town did plan to build there, but it wasn't really defined what we were going to do yet. So that's just a little bit of history. Now, I'd love to see it go in, but I'm not going to. I'm one person, and I want to do what's right for the town. I do think it's important that this is the last piece of water access that is town owned for the people to use. And as I said, I've heard comments, people say, well, they've got theirs, what about the rest of us? Are we gonna have water access? I personally feel like it should be water access for the public. However, there's plenty of room to decide exactly how it's gonna look. And if the town doesn't want that long pier there for whatever reason, the town gets to say that, and we will discuss it. It may not even be feasible. I think it is, but I could be wrong. So that's just what I'm talking about. And as far as, we did add a few dollars in, a lot of dollars in there, for the bulkhead, because we were approached by the Oyster Point condos that they needed to put in a bulkhead. We do understand the way this works, that if you come to an end of a bulkhead, you've got floodwaters coming in, it's going to come around and wash out behind it. So we also understood that Latney was going to put in a bulkhead on his, so we would be right in the middle between two bulkheads, which would not be a good thing because the water would come in, wash out behind the bulkhead. And wouldn't it be a good neighbor thing for us to go ahead and connect those two bulkheads? Well, we recently found out that Mr. Montague is not going to bring his bulkhead all the way out that far. So that kind of changes the whole dynamic of what we might do there and what it might cost. And if we don't put it in, then are we being bad neighbors to the Oyster Point condos? I mean, that's a new development that we weren't even discussing before 1 minute ago. So I'm just filling that in, because that is the view that I have had, which is not the same view as many other people have had. So that's my point. But I'm only one person. I'm not the queen. You guys drive it. Okay.
I've got a quick point. Bill added a letter or some letters to the public record. I'd like to add some clerk's letter to that. And I'd like to add some Goldberg's letters to today.
Completely on here. If it's on your desk, if it's at your seat, it's in the public record. So if there's a letter you said that's not there, you want me to give me, I'll make sure it gets attached to the minutes.
And Karen Cantinga.
Please receive.
Oh, okay.
You'll get it.
Okay. I did want to add couple of other good neighbor features that we were willing to throw in there, and that was having to do with the maneuverability. And with Mr. Montague, beautiful new marina, which I can't wait to see. We had discussed, originally, everything was gonna go right down the middle of our property. That if we narrowed that original base and we moved it over to, as you're looking out of the water, to the right-hand side, and you move the pier out from that side, this gives Montague's marina a whole lot more maneuverability without really clogging up anything on the other side, because there's plenty of room over there. And we would have a smaller footprint. We even tried to measure out to the end of the existing docks at the condos, which I think is less than the 80 feet originally, about 75 feet. And we're willing to say, all right, we won't go out farther than what is already there. These are some concessions we'd be happy to make. That's it.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yours, we own 30 feet, but it's not a 30-foot lot. It's 30 feet, but 15 feet is encumbered on that lot, which has to be maintained. As I understand it, maybe the condo people tell me this. That lot is not as big as we think it is it?
But there's an easement over it.
It's an easement over it, which we can't do anything with. Now, that's not on the water.
It's to provide emergency access.
For
To
fire
the
trucks,
condo.
you can't block it.
Yeah.
You can't block it for fire trucks.
And block.
Well, see, the problem is there's hedges there now. So, I mean, ideally, original concept was kind of go around the front of the condo.
Well, the fire trucks can cut that down and everything.
They
And
would-
it's still there.
I'm not
I
sure.
mean, I would love to get rid of the easements that I found in properties that I've.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm not sure
exactly.
the fire department would agree that taking a fire department truck in front of a condos that are on fire is a great idea.
Steve,
Yeah.
it's 30 feet, it's
Yeah,
15 feet encumbered.
Yeah,
Will you agree with that?
I understand there's an easement over it.
Okay.
As long as we can't block that easement.
We cannot block the easement.
No, I get that.
I got a couple of letters talking about providing 2 spaces of parking. Well, there's no place to
There's no place to
provide 2 spaces of parking.
Councilwoman Hanson has something to say.
Okay. Many people, first of all, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, good. Many people have said, well, we haven't seen any plans. We haven't seen any specifics. So the Planning Commission tried to discuss some specifics. Now, what I submitted to the town office several weeks ago has been changed. Things have changed. We've learned more about Latinase plans for the Montague Marina. You know, there are a number of things. And we're going to take that into consideration, of course, when whatever proposal is made at the town council meeting in 2 weeks. So with that in mind, I thought through a statement that I believe reflects, and I checked again with the Planning Commission members who agreed that it does reflect their view on this matter. There was a question about, okay, who on the Planning Commission voted? The Planning Commission doesn't vote. We make recommendations to the town council votes. But I can tell you, and I've checked with folks, who was in favor and who was not in favor. So the folks in favor were Don Dreyer, they were Gary Lister, they were Hank Dunton, and Mary Hansen, me, the chairman. Wanda Holberg in concept because she wants something to be done there, although we differed on the length of the development. And Alana Courtney disagreed. And we respect all of those opinions in this matter. So our effort to try to put together some specifics was not to be immovable or unreasonable, but to say, hey, here's something I hope that we can talk about and we can work from. I'm heartened tonight to hear how many people are interested in the idea, just the idea, maybe not the location, but the idea of providing waterfront access to both citizens and to visitors alike. Because of putting so much time into trying to come up with something concrete that talked about parking, that talked about this, that talked about that, I want to read a statement. And again, we'll be modifying our proposal for the next town council meeting to incorporate things like, the agreement not to put bulkhead at the location. We felt that we were being responsive to the adjacent neighbors. We now know that that was not the case. So I'd like to read my statement and also describe the proposal briefly, knowing that parts are going to be modified in final. So here goes. Development of the last piece of town-owned waterfront has been discussed for many years, and the Urbanna Planning Commission believes the time has come to proceed with a modified stationary pier and floating dock project on this site. The forces against this project are concerned about any impact it would have on adjacent private waterfront property owners, boating safety, money that should be used for other necessities and priorities, and let's just wait until later. Many people want a kayak dock to be located at the town marina, but it's actually the Virginia Department of Health prohibits the mixing of SPVs and motorized vessels together. Kayakers currently launch from the beach underneath the marina pier and directly in the mix of motorized vessel traffic, and this poses safety problems, as you've heard. Some want to wait and explore dredging a channel to connect Jameson Cove and Urbanna Creek at the northern edge of the current marina, but that would be years down the road, require new permitting and costly dredging and removal of some current marina slips that also provide revenue for the town. Others want to build the original pier and dock plan as permitted, to use the site for docking of tall ships and other historic vessels, and thereby promote film tourism, though the mean low water depth does not seem adequate to support this, and it would create significant crowding for the adjacent neighbors when visiting vessels were in port at this dock, which granted would be occasional. What are the forces in favor of a modified pier and dock project that responds both to the interests of adjacent neighbors and also promotes access to the town waterfront? We have a short window in which to use the existing permit to build upon this site. It ends in October of 2022. We have significant other grant funds to cover other boating infrastructure projects, water system needs, etc. The big grant, CARES Act funds, USDA funds, and plans are already underway to fund rebuilding of the Urbanna Town Pool. And Bill Goldsmith can talk further about additional possibilities we're newly aware of grant funds that may help with rebuilding the pool. So again, these are different buckets of money. We are proceeding with the development of a Blue Water History Trail in Urbanna Creek, which will be unlike others in the region and will create a demand for access to our waterfront related to tourism by SPV. Local lodgers and those who provide short-term rentals are begging for SPV access, visitor access to our beautiful waterfront. Our town needs economic development, and tourism is one way to promote it. Our restaurants and other businesses would benefit from these visitors to our waterfront, as would town's meals tax and lodging revenue. Finally, there is currently no other place for non-waterfront property owners and the public to safely launch SPV on Urbanna Creek. There is a need and there is a demand. The Urbanna Planning Commission and town staff have discussed these concerns with adjacent landowners starting back in August and actually before that, and continuing off and on. And as a result, we'll make a motion for the Urbanna Town Council to consider this development in a way that honors the concerns of these neighbors, provides access to our waterfront for non-waterfront property owners, promotes tourism by self-propelled vessels, SPV, like kayaks, canoes, and paddle boards, and provides a wonderful historic setting for the growing demand of this form of recreation. In short, we're looking for something that is most agreeable to most of the stakeholders. And we ask that the vision of the perfect not stand in the way of the good. And in the motion that we'll be making, we were proposing, and again, we're trying to propose something specific to further discussion, not because we're locked in this. 15 by 20 stationary pier at the property at the base of Virginia Street, and a 30 by 8-foot floating dock. And I provided various kinds of notes and examples of materials and various other kinds of attachments to what I was proposing. The floating pier is intended for self-propelled vessels only and will include some apparatus to aid in the launching of those SPV. To create a simple park on the footprint of the property at the end of Virginia Street with landscaping, a few benches, and a memorial and historic marker / display to the beloved Payne sisters and Payne's Crab Shack. because again, that was something that people were keenly interested in. Place bollards along the portion of the property that borders the road with prominent no parking, unloading only sign, also directing people to park in the marina or behind the Scottish Factory store, both which are within easy walking distance. The question of whether or not of restroom facilities. There are no public restroom facilities at the marina for those who think there are. Those are only for people who are slip renters or who are paying to rent a slip on on a nightly or daily or temporary basis, who can actually use those restrooms. And we've talked about the need for restrooms. We talked quite a bit about that recently. Where they would be located, that sort of thing, whether they could be covered by the boating infrastructure grant or not, or better porta potties for general use. Because again, there is one porta potty at the marina for all non-marina renters. So that is something that generally, in general, other than this, aside from this, needs to be seriously considered as our town grows. And then also, if desired by the Oyster Bay Condominium Association within 6 months of completion of the pier and park, build a 4x6 foot privacy fence on the boundary between the town property and the Oyster Bay condominium boundary. Now, I understand that again, we were trying to leave 15-foot easement, with that 15 by 20 foot pier instead of 30 by 30, trying to honor the Montague Marina request as well as the Oyster Bay people. Again, that may be something that wouldn't be allowed because of right of way for the fire department. So again, and with that in mind, just for the stationary pier and the dock of those dimensions, a 15 by 20 stationary pier and a 30 by 8 foot floating dock, the total for that would be $27,600. So I just want to set that out there and say we are eager to talk. We're eager to talk. So thank you for listening. And I apologize for a canned presentation, but I didn't want to forget anything. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Mary, what do you mean the vision of the perfect not stand in the way of the good? Explain that to me.
Yes, I can. I think that for many people, their idea of the perfect is having nothing there, or having an 80-foot dock for tall ships. And I don't know that either of those is what we want. I think that something in between is more doable. That's what I mean, Larry. Thanks for asking.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Bill Goldsmith?
Steve, I got a question for you to start out. One, are you saying that because of the MRC requirements, we're not allowed to build a kayak launch at the marina, or that we can't use big funds?
That's not BMRC, the Boating Infrastructure Grant.
Right. Oh, right. But you said that we couldn't, they wouldn't allow non-motorized and motorized vehicles at the same.
Yeah,
Does that mean that voids the grant, or we can't use the money for that?
Well, you're dancing a fine line.
No,
No, I'm saying,
okay.
I'm saying, the answer is, they don't want that there.
Okay.
Because then it confuses the issue. If we use big grant funds for something other than what they're intended to, which be kayak launching, whatever. But the ramp, we cannot use big funds in order to fund improvements to the ramp. Why? Because it's a mixing of.
No, but my point is, we could put in floating docks that would benefit smaller craft at the marina, and that would use big funds.
You have to pose that question. I don't exactly understand where you're coming, because
Garth may have a clarification.
you have Preston Smith's in charge.
Yeah.
And so the position that Preston Smith's taking,
I'm meeting with him tomorrow.
is he's gonna clarify that
Okay.
for you. What he told me when I was mayor was the best thing to do is to separate the two functions.
Right.
Primarily because then there's no confusion as to whether state funds. Yeah, go ahead.
The whole purpose of the big grant is to promote fishing and
boating and larger vessels. That's the whole purpose of Big Grant.
Okay,
So Preston, who is the director of this program, is adamant that he does not want mixing of funds for kayaks and the bigger, because it's a conflict with what that grant is all about.
right, but
It's also
But it does, but it will pay for, and that's what I'm meeting with him tomorrow about, is to discuss a proposal that we go on and use big funds to put some finger piers that are floating at the pier and make some changes to the marina.
Right.
So we could get a few more boats in there, and also maybe put a floating dock down at the end of the marina.
the north end,
Yes, that could be used.
That's
okay,
here's why.
okay,
You might ask why. Why do they make these restrictions? The money that fuels boating infrastructure grant program comes from marine fuel tax.
and, you know, I get it.
Yeah.
The point, what I'm hearing is we could spend our own money for those improvements at the marina. We just have to do it in such a way that it doesn't indicate any conflict with what money we're getting from the big.
That's a gray line that you have to get Preston Smith to commit to do. But here's the thing, that totally ignores the safety issue of doing it at one place versus the other.
But one of the things I have a problem with in my list of things is what I'm hearing is somehow the people that are for the pier at the end of Virginia Street think it's safer to go out between two marinas than it is to go out at the end of another marina. And that doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, okay, so the discussion would be, why are we going to give up paying slips in order to accomplish the goal?
I don't think we have to give up paying slips.
Okay, well,
May I,
We got 150.
may I say something,
worth into
Bill?
that.
Just real quickly, one of the differences is if you launch at the marina, you launch right into the main traffic channel.
Yeah,
So
well,
they're not, that's a significant way that they're different. Thank you. I'm sorry for interjecting, Steve.
What I would do is I would say this is a matter for further consideration.
Right. And then another issue I have that, and they're all sort of tied together, is you are right. Water fund is completely separate, and big funds are separate from the kind of things we're talking about here. But the pool is not separate in that a portion of that is going to have to be financed. And for every $50,000 we spend on this project is going to be about $4,000 a year at 4% for 20 years, $4,000 in debt service per year for the entire length of that loan. So it's definitely taking money away from what we can do for the pool. That's A.
Yeah, I don't.
And two, we don't really have a plan that we're voting on. We have proposals of various size fixed piers and various amounts of
Mhm.
piers, but we don't have any for site development. We don't have any costs on toilets. We don't have any costs on fencing. We've got no idea what we're really talking about spending in this particular project. And I agree with Alana. By the time you add in all the site development costs and the site planning costs and the equipment and the things that we need to get in place to appease neighbors and to meet the needs of what we want this site to look like, we're going to be easily 2 to 3 times what we're talking about spending for the actual structures themselves. And again, I go back to the pool. When I took account when we were doing this, and when we added your letters and Bill's letters, we're about 3 to 1 against in terms of people that actually were willing. And this is the most people since I've been on council. This is the most people, other than when we had the whole get together for deciding what the plan for Tabor Park was going to be. This is the most people I've seen at any meeting ever. I mean, this has turned it out, and it's 3 to 1 against.
No, and I give you credit for doing a great job of counting. It is the quality of the argument. I see a lot of people make the same argument over and over. not well developed, and they're not thinking about the financing arrangement of this. And they're just not, they don't have the background.
I'm thinking about the financing and I'm saying I think it's a bad idea because we could put the money towards the pool. People,
You have the-
over 80% of the people in this town said they wanted a pool.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
But did they tell you how much they want to spend? The
I,
answer's
I
no.
know they don't want to spend anything.
I know they don't
And,
want to
and,
spend.
and the way we keep them from having to spend anything is by not spending money on things we don't need.
Well, we have currently, we have currently, council voted on this, I did not vote on this, to allow up to 1.5 million to spend on this pool. And if we had a contract for 800,000, you tell me why it takes $700,000 bill to build an $800,000 pool. Where are you gonna spend the extra $700,000?
Guys,
Yeah.
we're getting off
Okay,
point
I'm
here.
just saying, there's, you know,
I don't, we all know we've got a whole lot of things that we're trying to do, and none of them is free.
Right.
well, and
None of them.
Garth's got an option that he's working on that may get us under the 1.5 easily.
Oh, I know that.
So if we save $700,000, that's pretty darn good.
It is, but we still would have to finance.
All right, stop. Are we talking about pool now, or are we talking about the dock?
I'm talking about the dock. I tied it into the pool because I think that's more important. People,
It
like
is
I
more
said,
important, but this is the timing thing.
Yeah.
Well, and that goes to another one of my points, which is the permit that we have that's expiring doesn't identify the project that we're considering. And I don't know how that works specifically, but it seems to me that we're in violation of something if we build something that doesn't fit the permit. We have to, my point is we have to file for another permit or an amendment to the permit before we can do anything.
We would have to pay what, about $490 to amend the permit. We've been talking to DMRC about this
Okay.
the entire time. So no, we wouldn't be breaking any laws or anything like that, but we would have to pay a certain amount of money to amend it, and we would have to have a definite plan. And we are running out of time, and basically, what this group has to do, A, we have to listen to the public. B, we have to be able to present an actual plan and vote it up or down before the time runs out.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to do.
But the
We have to
plan, I
do that.
think, should be a plan for at least an estimate of appropriate costs associated with all the things that we need to get done for this to occur. And I think when we get actual costs, it's going to be considerably more than the what was it, Mary? 44,000?
No, it's 38.
It was not less than that. It was just for, and Bill, granted, it's just for the pier. It was 27,600.
Okay.
So there's a couple different versions either.
Yeah, well, it depends on which version you want to go
Right.
with, what it's gonna cost.
Well, and that was with a 30-foot floating dock, a 15 by 20-foot stationary pier. So,
So we've got some job voting to do.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we're running out of time.
So we've got to do it, and we've got to do it. I mean, we're constantly running out of time. We've got to give the public their due. We've got to do it. We've got to spend the time and do it. Sounds like.
I agree, Larry.
So you got yourself, sounds like to me you got 4 votes, looks like to me. I don't know what we're
I
talking
would
about here.
say there are a lot of people for this that aren't here. There were people here that are for that didn't speak. So I think just counting what you're counting isn't a fair count.
That's an
Well,
awful lot
there's-
of people
yeah,
that
there's
are not
also-
here that are voice.
Many.
Correct. Yeah.
All right, public comment is not over.
Now, why'd you let her speak? Somebody else starts to talk and you throw the gavel down?
Because it was getting out of hand and everyone that's speaking has got to close them down.
Can I ask one thing? Was the original property that the Payne's Crab House, that was rented to the Paynes?
Yes.
Are we allowed to ask questions and respond to the things? I mean, my name's been repeated over and over, and you're letting some people speak and not everyone. That sounds grossly.
I'm just going back in history. So that was rented? My question would be, if we want to work together and we want to work with the community, why don't we work with the Montagues and let the Montagues rent that slip of land? The Montagues put their marina in, and one requirement would be that they would put a dock to accommodate the kayaks, and everybody wins.
That's not bad idea.
Let me want to speak.
He left. He's back.
What I'm confused though is what are the rules in terms of where we are? Can someone clarify them as far as public comment, back and forth? Where are we?
Well, I think we need to listen to that.
Yeah, I think this process is incredibly unorganized. I think, and maybe even town council people made the point that there's no proposal to vote on. It's like, is it Mary's proposal? Is it Steve's proposal? Is it some totally different proposal? It is impossible for the public to participate in this government if you don't articulate the proposals in advance, give opportunity for comment, have dialogue. I would love to draw bone with you. I'd love to talk with you. I would love to be constructive in this process, but to show up and get 3 minutes to talk, if you're lucky enough to sign in, and then some people get to talk and some people don't, it's a really bad process. And there's so much bad blood on this because you're trying to use a 10-year-old permit. This is not the time to do that. I think this project has generated so much heat that you need to slow down and really try to get consensus around it. I think something good can be done down there. I think improvements can be made to the marina, and that we can all come out ahead, but we need to have a better dialogue about this whole process.
I think that's where we're working.
Garth.
What we're trying to get.
Garth wants
Go
to
ahead,
speak.
Greg.
The whole purpose of this Latin is to do exactly what you're saying. This council is all over the place. In order for us to move forward and look after the interest of the community, we've got to have this. And is it a little unruly? Yeah. And I don't like it any more than you do, but we have to have a dialogue. We've been talking about this thing, and frankly, this thing, and I've said it and I'll say it again, this issue, we've got so many projects on the table right now that are all of them are top priority. To me personally, this is not a top priority project, but I don't have a vote. This is the council. So we have to bring them together and they have to come up with a consensus of what is best for the town and what is best for the citizens. And that's what this is all about, is to allow an opportunity for everybody to speak and have their voices heard, including them. And is it unorganized? That's what a workshop is supposed to do. That's why we said this is a workshop so that everybody could.
But it's not a workshop if people in the audience can't respond, and if people can't, I mean, things were set up here that need to be rebutted and responded. I've never seen it. SDP can't operate with powerboats. Well, that's ridiculous. We have people rowing into the ding dock all the time. They're already mixing that traffic there. I voted on. I think that is a total fallacy. To say that the town marina is less safe than putting this between my marina and your marina, that is crazy. That's the same. The limit is 65 feet spar length. There's 30 feet at best between your marina and my marina. There is no tall ship thing that could possibly fit there, and that doesn't even mention the depth core. We should sit around a table where everyone can talk this through with the experts, with the adjoining property owners. It's exactly what Mary proposed in August. It hasn't happened, and I feel like people are trying to take advantage of the fact that I took 4 years to get this contractor into Red Creek. It was really hard. I've got a $500,000 project, and people are trying to take advantage of that and really harming my neighbors. I'm most concerned about the people at Oyster Harbor. It's not Oyster Point, and it's not Oyster Harbor condos, and it's really upsetting. And this context is not a good place to hammer out a really good plan, which I think could be done if you allowed people to have a dialogue, not a totally constrained artificial discussion like this. And I met with you down in the marina and had that, and I really appreciated that. That was very constructive.
So did I. But, and let me just make one more comment, if I may. Anytime, and if you take government money, and I think most of y'all are aware of this, they've got constraints. And the big grant is just that. That grant money is for certain things that they want to promote. And so when you take that money, you got to live by that contract, or they're not going to honor you. You're going to have to pay that money back. In this case, they just won't give us the money. And they're the ones who are saying we can't have, they don't want the kayaks and what's
don't want them mixed with the motorized boats. Why? Because that whole grant is to promote bigger boats, sport fishing, and gas-powered boats, so.
But Steve raised a great point. I had to bring in a floating dock and attach it to the town marine's dinghy dock in order to have this regatta there. There should be a permanent floating dock adjacent to that boat ramp. And a boat ramp is an ideal place to launch a kayak, especially if it has a floating dock next to it. Once you stab the pilings down through this can dock, Virginia Street, you're not gonna be able to pull that over there. It's gonna be permanently in place. It's not as portable as you think at the length you're talking, because it will have 4 pilings according to the drawings submitted. So better to spend the money on a floating dock adjacent to the town boat ramp, for example. That's one way to improve what we spend our money on in the town of Urbana.
And I will say this too, and it was brought up, and I didn't write down who brought it up. But it was really originally Bill Hyde's idea a number of years ago that he came to me and tried to float it in town council a number of years ago, and it didn't go anywhere. But the idea of being through to Jameson Cove on the other side, which was where it was historically, joined it, that actually used to be a deep water mooring.
That's by far the safest place to launch a kayak is in
Well,
the
and
Jameson Cove. That's a great point.
I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. Because we could use the dock we've already got there in the back and just step down there and you've got a really safe place to do it. The question is,
Expense.
well,
And you
Roy has looked into that and it's not gonna cost as much as continually fixing the culvert. Fill in the culvert, dig that out, and we've got a safe road over there. We've got a safe place to put kayaks in. The question is, now we've got another neighbor to deal with. Okay, we've got to deal with Mr. Richwine to make sure he's gonna be on board doing it. We've got to go through DMRC and all of the permitting things. And there's no guarantee that we're gonna get that. I mean, in my opinion, that would be the best thing we could do. Are we gonna be
That's where
allowed
we should
to?
go with.
Yeah.
That's
Dredge
what
my
I'm
son.
saying. But you're not, even if it took another year or two.
Well,
It would
take
be
another
the
10
best.
years.
Let me explain
No.
something to you. I was part of the Perkins Creek Association dredge project over on Perkins Creek. That gets dredged about every 10 years at a cost of $100,000. The dredging that we did at the town marina was a finite, well-defined, pre-existing project, so to speak. And we have to do that occasionally in order to keep the depth correct, at mean low water 6 feet. Because we have such sandy soil, the same thing that happened, that created this bridge, this impassable sand bridge that cut off Jameson Cove, is going to happen again. It's like building a house on sand versus building a house on some other more solid foundation.
But the existing culvert is why you had to dredge it to marina, and why I'm spending $80,000 to dredge right next door. So if you close off that culvert, that would solve 2 dredging problems and maybe create 1 more, but you'd still be 1 ahead, right?
Yeah.
And it would flush much more because it's right at the main channel to the river. It should be studied. I'm not a hydrologist, but I think it
I
might.
guess it's one of those things that when it took us 5 years to get through the regulatory hoops to even dredge the marina, I see that we're probably going to have the same kind of regulatory hoops.
Took me 6 months to get the dredge permit,
Okay.
or less.
We couldn't do it that way. Okay, it didn't take us that.
Good, Art.
Just, we are looking into the idea that was tossed over what we're talking about. And we actually talked to the MRC because we were assuming the same thing you are, Steve, that it would be take an act of Congress to get anything done.
Yeah, Army Corps of Engineers.
And they said that they didn't think that it would actually be that big of a deal.
Oh, really?
So,
So how much square footage sand we got to get at?
well, I don't know.
See,
I mean,
that's
that's
what
what
they say that
study
it's
it.
going to be cheaper until you know what the cost is. And it's
Well,
like,
right now, we've got
we're going to have to dredge it.
we've got cost estimates to replace that culvert between 50,000 and 500,000, depending on who you talk to. So, I mean, and thankfully, we've got the engineers saying that that's not as dangerous and doesn't need to be fixed as promptly as we were originally thinking. So we do have a little bit of time to.
Dorothy, I hope you've used common sense and you've talked to Richland about this. I don't know how much land we've got in between there.
Well, we've asked Bay Design to do a survey so that we know exactly where our line
There you go.
is.
Yep.
There you go. Marina.
You've also got, Richland's permission in advance, you just have to get it anyway.
Right.
So don't wait for the survey, ask Richland if he's gonna object us.
Well, it may not impact it, though.
No,
You ought to survey first and then determine what you got to do.
okay, any kind of project like this, you have to get permission from the adjacent land.
Yeah, but Corps of Engineers uses that. I mean, you got to survey the land. You need to always survey your land.
I'm just saying.
It's amazing the people who buy property don't survey the land.
Well, we put in for a survey, it just hasn't happened yet. We're just waiting for it to come.
Good.
But we've already taken steps to see if we can do that.
And that survey is for more than just that project. It's just to identify what we've got. Yeah. So it's not just all that we went off deep end, say, hey, this is a great idea, we'll get a survey. And we need to know how much of that culvert we own, or if we own it all, or if we don't own it all. And I haven't seen any documents that show with any definity or specificity. There's a little update. When we had the plat done at the well, John asked the surveyor to come down and take a look at where our property line was. At the marina, when you're leaving the marina, our land stops right at the culvert. That's according to the survey. Which end of it? So the beginning end of it. Because we don't know, from the culvert starting all the way, it's just the right of way.
And that's where our easement starts.
So that's what John told me.
So how does that impact it?
He was just saying that they were having a survey to find out where it was, and I'm just telling them where it is.
Yeah, I think that what this shows, we should all be working together to solve bigger problems, like you're saying, save money on future dredging on the south side of the marina, figure out what the optimal use of the cove is that the safest place for kayaks? Maybe yes. As Ricky said, maybe spend your money on that. If you want to lease me that strip, I'll build a kayak deck. It will not be nearly as big as the one that you all have planned, but there are a lot of ways we can work together instead of against each other to optimize the water. It's pretty muddy.
Yeah, it's pretty muddy.
But if
Go
you
over in that, you're up to your knees.
But it would
That's
flush.
not-
It would flush out if it could flush directly into the
Just saying,
creek.
man, I'm just saying,
It would flush
we're
out.
trying to make it safer.
Well, and it could be that if we decide, if we're allowed to do this, that what we need to do is build into the town budget periodic dredging. Because we know it's gonna happen.
So with this other project, you don't have to periodic dredge. It's one and done. Now, yeah, you'll have some
You're gonna have
downstream.
to come back to dredge later.
I have a question. I have a question.
For kayak.
Hello?
That's only-
Yeah, Latine, I have a question because I'm confused by it. What would make, if we leased that land to Montague Marina and you installed a kayak dock there, what would make that more acceptable than our building a kayak dock there?
It'd just be much smaller. It would be kayaks.
Okay, so it's the size then that you're concerned about.
It's the size.
So if we had a more modest size, that would meet your needs.
I think it could. I would want to talk to my dear neighbors and make sure that it was good for them who live next door to it. One of the problems with the size of the dock that's being proposed, it will be a magnet for power boats. I guarantee you will not be able to keep small power boats
Yeah.
off of it. Because it's a floating dock, which is easier to tie up than anything that the town has at its marina because your docks are too high. So you will suck in power boats there. Kayakers won't be able to use it. It'll be so popular. People will be walking up to the restaurants from there. And so you need to make it small enough that it would be truly a kayak dock. Then I think it would be much more acceptable.
Okay, that's good to know, Latine. Thank you.
I have constant problems, or we do at the marina, of people coming in power boats to our marina to into Cliff or into the know where they check into the hotel. It's crazy. It will happen.
I have been raising cane for 30 years for them to lower them docks so people can come in the river and go up. You got one little dinghy dock, one boat gets there, that's it. Can't nobody else get there.
Yep.
I have been after them for years. They don't help us.
They're just too high.
You know that.
And there's another piece of history that I think is important, and it goes to what Lafayette is proposing. And that is the prior council actually voted to look into a very simple kayak launch there and voted to, we didn't vote to fund it, but we voted to, go after it. And then it went by the wayside like a lot of other things. And this new council went straight to the 30 by 30 and the 80-foot pier, which was something that the prior council consciously refused to fund or
Uh-huh.
and so it's a washing back and forth, but something like that, I actually, as adamant as I am against the current project, I voted for that. I've been a little bit more
Bill, what was it that you voted for?
just a very simple kayak launch.
A very simple kayak dock?
A
Okay.
kiosk to the Payne sisters.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
the volunteers loose that have done such a good job with the sign
Yeah.
out of town and the
I get it. I get it.
park and clean it up a little bit, put a simple kayak launch there, and I have to admit that I have, listening to people like Dan Sneed and Phil Friday, I've been a little more against it because of parking issues and policing issues and lighting and trash and all the other things, but it gets rid of my other concerns about maintenance and higher costs.
Yeah.
and
Right. Right.
ongoing expense to take care of all
Okay.
the ancillary things.
You'd have to, the bollards idea and no unloading, flooding, you're gonna have kayakers with their cars parked right on that curb. When we put the slow kids sign there, my dad and I try to erect speed bumps over and over because people come flying around it. You gotta
Yeah.
let people go in if you're gonna use that for kayaks and maybe 15 minutes max or something, but.
Well, we're in the
Yeah.
process of creating this blue water trail, kayak trail. We're trying to partner with Milton Municipal District Planning Commission. We're hoping we can get funding. Well, they may tell us where we got to put that kayak,
Right.
and it may not be there, it may be somewhere else.
But a
I
Watling
mean,
Street
all
would be
this is a cart, whatever.
And
Thank you.
Mary, again, just for history, it goes back to a vote we had at the beginning of this process where you wanted permission for the planning commission to go talk to the condominiums to negotiate something for
Right.
that. And I
Right.
voted against it. And the reason I voted against it is because I'm not against negotiating with anybody, but I am against repeating negotiation every time we turn around. And we had already
Yeah.
gone through that process and reached what
Yeah.
I thought was an agreement, and then it was gone.
Yeah.
And that-
And of
that's-
course, I had, as the new person, I had no awareness of that unless people, educate me.
And that's not
Yeah.
uncommon. Garth and Roy have
Yeah,
done
I know.
things that have been passed and then sort of lost to history.
Well,
Right.
and also, I mean, you're talking about the previous council, but the council before that has voted to move ahead with this, which is one of the reasons that we voted to change the length of service from
Right.
2 years to 4 years so that we could actually vote on a project and complete it.
Yeah,
before the
exactly.
president says, yeah, we don't want to do that. We can change our mind. I mean, good, bad, or indifferent, you have to have time to complete something so you're not changing your mind every 2 years and getting everybody all upset about it all over again. It's really counterproductive.
And Barbara,
Everybody
you
agrees
were
with that.
right about the fact that the kayak thing was not the incentive of this at all. And that's probably my fault, because in talking about the Blue Water Trail, I just noted that's one place that it could be a site. And for some reason, it went beyond. So I think you are correct in that the initial reason for doing this didn't have anything to do with kayak.
Yeah, it just took a left turn. Go ahead.
I know this is a trial and everybody has their opinion, but if the Montagues were in favor of it and the town could rent it to them for a 2-year or 3-year trial, we can put that 70 or 38,000 away, let the Montagues try it for a little while and say, okay, you're going to rent it for $1 a year, but you have to provide a dinghy dock or a kayak dock, and let's try it for 2 years or 3 years. And then if it goes really well, the Montagues can say, okay, town, let's put your marina or your dock out there and let's do it. But we're treading on something. We don't know what's gonna happen. It might work well for 6 months and then nobody's gonna use it.
I'm confused, how would you let people use it?
In the same fashion you are, they're renting the property, they can take their fence down, they have access to the whole thing. They put a parking lot, like Latney said, all right, 15-minute parking, and then if you're over 15 minutes, Chuck Leeser's coming to get your car. But let them park at the town marina, and let's put some more porta johns there, and let's try it for a little while. We don't need to just go throw a bunch of money away.
And yet we're talking about exactly the same plan or similar plan, Latne. If, you know, and again, if it's a modified kayak dock, you know, I know I'm open to that. I think most of the planning commission members are open to that as well. But, you know, you're still talking about the same parking, you're still talking about the same supporting issues that I know people are objecting to. So I just want to point out that we're talking about dealing with those issues in the same way, whether Latne rents it or whether the town owns it.
But there's one important point you're forgetting. And that is that this is the last town-owned water access for all of our citizens.
You're still gonna own
Right.
it.
You can install them if you
Once
use it.
And the
you
permit.
rent it is no longer.
Yeah, you could restrict the use of the last, or just like when Bill was gonna lease it, he had restrictions that restricted what he could do and how long he could do it. You could do that. And the difference between your project and a project that I was involved with, is that I could take that fence down and create more area. So there'd be a little bit of parking for my tenants and a little bit of parking for kayakers. And it would just be a better quality facility dedicated to kayakers.
So how do we get public money to fund a project that becomes a private?
Yeah. Yep.
You don't need any money, Latney's gonna rent it.
Yeah, for $1 a year, that's not happening.
That one thing is that most of the people that came here today or sent letters in or something like that, like Bill said, it's 3-1 against it, okay? That is the bottom line. Our oath is to follow what our constituents want. Okay, and right now, they don't want that.
But what I'm
Yeah,
seeing
okay,
is
wait,
they
let
do
me-
want it
yeah.
if Latney does it, but they don't want it if the town does it.
Yeah.
Let me
Right,
go back.
right.
This one,
Take the fence down and provide
okay,
parking.
and putting in something down there. I mean,
Okay,
40%
let's have
of
one
the
person at a time.
survey, they have stormwater drainage problems.
But people are used to it because of the size and because it was a town expense. But what Vicky's proposing is something different.
Right, but what I'm saying is that we don't need to be spending those funds for that. We need to spend it on something that has an intrinsic value to the residents of this town. That's who we represent. And in that case, you know, and a 3-1 here, you know, everyone else has written letters or anything else like that, they did 3-1. And as far as I'm concerned, we're still the US of A and the majority rules.
Yeah.
I will not vote.
All right, hold on, Bill.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Oh, as I was hearing you all talk about Lawrence and what we did with that piece of property. Oh, I heard some things that I didn't think quite fit. And I am offering to all of y'all, plus the people here, if you want me to stand up and tell you what happened, I will be glad to do it. It might help you in by some of the stuff like this. So, and I will be glad to share that with you if you want. It doesn't need to.
Yeah.
I want to know.
So I think you all are forgetting one important factor though. If they think it's dangerous to have a kayak launch at the town marina, it's got to be more dangerous to launch kayaks in between two pretty busy marinas. And plus you've got a boathouse that blocks view. So I think that, I think we need to take that into account. I don't think for children learning to kayak, it's a particularly good place. I think the town marina is better.
You still have the safety issues. If the kayak there and putting off, just like Monica said, they're winging around that driveway and that gravel road. So they're gonna be walking up and down the road to the tobacco warehouse to park the car They'll be parking the car over at the marina, walking around that curve on that gravel road to get to the kayak launch.
It's the pedestrians.
You still have a safety issue, whether he funds it, the town funds it, or whatever. If it's
But
over,
if there wasn't a fence there, then there'd be room to pull off, unload, park.
one car, maybe two. But if you put it over at the marina and don't mix the grant money with it, I wouldn't have, I mean, okay, let the town, put the
That was
tax
my
money up
question, is how
and
that-
build it. The heck with that grant thing, don't take their money, just do it.
But the thing is, Tammy, that is a want, not a need. And we
Yeah,
got a
I
lot
got
of
that.
needs in this
Sure.
town, and we have to address those first.
Yeah.
Okay.
How many kayaks we plan on, 300 or 400 a day? I've never heard so much kayaks in my life, in 30 minutes. I bet you don't have 15 kayaks down in a weekend.
Yeah, but what we got
Well,
really is
It's
bring a lot more
exactly.
infrastructure.
You know what's interesting, though? I have the same question about building a very extensive pool in order to accommodate flip turn. And I asked everybody in the room, how many of y'all go to the pool did flip turn?
It's always,
Yeah.
that's for the swim team. Okay, let me make an observation here. You can all disagree with me as much as you want, it's okay. But what I'm seeing here tonight is, we're going round and round and round, okay? One thing that we can agree on is we don't agree. Okay, we don't agree on anything. I mean, the way, the shape, the timing. I think Latney has got a wonderful point. I think that we are trying to shoehorn this into an impossible time zone. We're just not gonna reach consensus in the time that we are allotted to do this. I feel personally that we may be cheating the residents of this town out of something really good because we will miss the time zone. However, maybe if we work together and we form a committee beyond this group, we can come up with a better solution that will make more
Yeah.
people
Very
happy.
good.
Well, I would add, it's not that hard to get a permit if there's consensus. And so people grasping to use the bill height permit, you know, if there's consensus around it, it's a reasonable project, it's not that hard. And so this rush to do something by October seems silly to me, having just gone through a big permit process.
And that is really what has been hurting us, that we have, because we have had turnover every 2 years before we could finish anything, it has brought us to the finish line without ever really starting the race. And we're just kind of crawling in the gravel here. And personally, I would like to start over again. You know? And I don't know if anyone here anyone who votes here on the council agrees with me.
I would
And
like
would
to
like-
introduce our new mayor.
Yeah, good.
Barbara Hartley.
Thank you.
What do you mean by startup?
It's an inside joke. So anyway. Of course, we're not voting on this tonight anyway. But I think maybe we need to reconsider some things before we come back in 2 weeks.
I think that's the point.
I know, but we may want to be considering another option, which is scrap the whole thing and start over again, building consensus with the neighbors. They've been pounding us all along to ask us to do that. Okay? That might be the better thing to do. I'm just putting that out there. You don't have to agree with me. You can vote against it. Maybe you can say no, and you can move ahead with our original plans. Eric can say no, we've already got this. It's not up to me. It's up.
The advantage of that, and this is what I talked about with Garth, when we walked the whole thing, is you should put together a comprehensive plan, it's a package of improvements. So you optimize kayaks, you optimize dinghy tie-up from cruising sailboats, you optimize the ability to bring in tall ships, you build a little, like an 8-foot extension off the main pier, like the pier used to have before it was rebuilt so that you could.
So Latney,
The whole package would make.
maybe you should be on the planning commission, because the comprehensive plan is something that we're having to deal with.
Well, the waterfront should
Just
be
saying.
comprehensively planned. Yeah, the waterfront deserves, good thought, high quality. There's a lot of energy around it, and it is the jewel of Urbana. It's not just this little Virginia Street strip, it's the whole thing.
If you look
I
at what,
agree with you, Mayor, and for whatever it's worth, and Latney about, and I don't think he's referring to the comprehensive plan. I think he's referring to creating a comprehensive plan encompassing all of the water aspects.
the waterfront.
Yeah, right, which is something that we've talked about after we deal with updating the comprehensive plan that is required by law, which is what we're tackling right now to try to get that done. So then we can move to things like, what do we want future economic development to be in town, and what kind of parking needs to be available, and all of that, all those really exciting things that will make our town even more attractive than it already is.
Maybe we can partner with Latney and other business people, try to make those things happen.
And Larry, I would suggest that somebody, a member of council, make a motion to table this issue, form a committee, and so that we can look at this, study this, and bring it back out.
Well, I'll make the motion. I'm sure everybody else will too, but I'll be glad to make that motion. We need to table this thing, form this committee, look at a comprehensive plan of the waterfront, the entire waterfront that we own, which includes the private homes around us and the marinas around us, so that we're working together as a group. That's my motion. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All right, take a vote. Marjorie? Larry?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Steve?
Sure. Yes.
Bill? Yes. Mary?
Do you have a time limit?
Yes.
Mayor votes yes. Motion passes.
Do you have a time limit as to when you will do that, or is this gonna drag out for days?
We're just.
Yes.
gonna have to breathe for a minute.
It's just going to drag out for decades. Yeah.
No, it's not gonna drag out for
What I
decades.
see.
All right, we still have the rest. of the
In your
agenda.
lifetime, Wanda.
Yeah.
I thank you all for the library.
Thank you all.
Okay, that is good. Let's skip on down to matters of town council. Coffee with the town administrator. Lauren?
I test right now.
It's been a while, and we had originally said that we were gonna do this coffee with the town administrator periodically, and then things have kind of gone sideways. But what we would like to do is get back on track and do this quarterly, and have an opportunity for members of the town to come in and sit down and hear what's going on, and have an open dialogue, and so we can make sure that we're not violating any rules. Have two members of council, because any three or more makes a meeting. So we would have two members of council attend, and just have an open dialogue, and we can do it right here. And the first one, or the second one we are scheduling is for Wednesday, March 2nd at 9 a.m. here. And the mayor, and we'd like another member of council to volunteer to attend.
Okay, everybody okay with that?
What is it gonna be?
First one will be Wednesday, March 2nd, 9 a.m. Okay, did anyone make a motion? 9 a.m.
We don't need a motion.
You're just gonna do it.
We just need a volunteer. Mayor, you already volunteered.
Wednesday, 9 a.m. I can do that.
Okay.
Okay, next, Marina update. Garth? Good to see you.
I've got a meeting with, Preston Smith, tomorrow. I was hoping he could meet earlier, but tomorrow was as early as he could meet to talk about some, improvements to the, marina, town marina, and to make a determination if the big grant can pay for some of these. And that is to replace some of the current finger piers with floating piers, finger floating docks, and put floating docks on either end of the marina.
Main Marina down.
Yeah, and that would increase, give us a couple more spaces for a few more boats. So I'm going to bring that up to council at the meeting in 2 weeks.
Do you have any type of,
Oh,
do you have any type of plans on what you're thinking about doing? You know,
Yes.
she said at both ends, I'd like to see what.
okay. I'm going to send that out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, they're supposed to be doing the boat ramp before they start on Latney's marina. So they're here, they've got the equipment, and they're going to be working on that pretty quick.
David Park, pool.
The update on that is some money just opened up February 1st. And Martha and I attended a workshop, an introduction, an explanation seminar on this money, and it will fund, it's a reimbursement like big money, a reimbursement grant of 50% up to total cost of the project $2 million and a minimum of $500,000. So it's perfect for pool stuff. And unlike some previous ones, swimming pools are specifically included in eligible things. The money, this round, the paperwork has to be done by March 15th. And Martha, I'm afraid that you're right. We're probably not going to be able to get this one, but they're supposed to open it up again spring with another round of money. And the current one, there was what, $11.6 million, I think, available, which is a fair amount of money. A lot of people are out there for it. And this is through that, I pulled this up so I could remember, it's the Land and Water Conservation Fund through the Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation in conjunction with the National Park Service. So it's federal money funneled through state organizations. But like I said, it's a fairly daunting thing, and I think we need to have more information before we're going to be able to actually file for it. But it's something that, in reconnecting with Bill Mechnick at LPDA, he told me that it just opened up, and so we followed up on it right away. And so we're at least going to try to fulfill their needs and see if we can get some money.
Fantastic.
So let me ask you a question. When you say March, we're missing this year's deadline. Is that what you're saying?
It's going to be open again in the spring. The things that we need to have there are, we're going to have financing information, plans, certain, time schedule, a lot of things that are still really in flux because we don't know for sure whether we're going to have any partners, whether we're going to, we haven't established a fee structure for sure. None of that stuff in terms of how we're going to pay for this, other than we know we're going to use CARES money, is in place. And so it may be that we could do a an explosion of information into sheets at the last second, but it would be daunting to get that done by March 18th.
But it sounds like what we got now, the application we have now, the next round is gonna be very similar.
Yes.
So we can at least
You're talking a
start,
year out.
we can at least start working on it.
No, it's a twice a year thing. It's gonna be-
Twice a year?
Yeah.
So when's the next application? deadline?
Like August or
Okay,
something?
I don't recall her saying, I can get in touch with her.
Yeah, and
About that.
then, the process is fairly extended in terms of its time schedule, in that you don't get the decision for what, like 6 months or something like that? There's a 6-month period
Yeah, it
where it has to go through the machine,
They go.
and
it
then
goes
you
through
gotta
them.
complete it within 3 years.
Yeah, he has, and then it goes like, whatever their level is, the Virginia level, and then it goes on to National Park Service. And they're the ones who yay or nay it. And then, yeah, you have 3 years.
Can you use it for demolition or just construction?
Demolition was also on there, wasn't it?
Yes, if it was because, it wouldn't pay for it if it was because of poor maintenance,
Right.
but it would pay for it because if it was just old.
Oh, which we certainly need
Yeah,
that.
we took care of that, yeah.
Does it require an audit to do those?
I don't
I
recall that
don't
being
remember
on
an
the
audit
checklist.
being specifically
I'm
part of
sure
the
it will.
paperwork.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
just like going through the USDA.
Yep.
Trying to get the well.
Yeah.
You just have to fill out reams and reams and reams of paper, and we're not there yet.
Yeah,
We don't have a contract or, you know. a
right.
good
The
idea.
instruction manual is 125 pages long or something.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of stuff that's gotta be
And-
put together.
And one of the criteria is you need to shovel ready.
Oh,
Yeah, that's one of the
so you
criteria.
gotta get all your ducks in a row.
Yeah.
You can win.
Yeah.
And the show.
And
And
And a shovel.
Don't be dashed to death with a shovel.
We'll do duck shovels.
And again, it's a 50% reimbursement, minimum $500,000 for the project, if I remember correctly, and up to $2 million.
Yes, yes, the minimum they'll give you is.
So we could get, 250,000 plus.
On to 500,000.
Okay. All right, action items, fireworks.
We have reached out to American Fireworks, who has been doing their fireworks display for, according to the records, at least since 2015. And I personally think we've got the best game in town when it comes to fireworks. So we reached out to them to make sure that we could get a schedule, and we're scheduling the town's fireworks with approval of council for Friday, July 1st, 2022, with a rain date of July 5th. And the owner of the company had indicated that they haven't raised their rates in several years, and due to inflation and added costs and so forth, they're going to have to raise their rates. And so what we looked at was he had said he wanted to raise it up $13,000, which is $3,000. And so we talked about it and said we don't want to cut how they put the fireworks up in the air, because he said you had options. You could cut it as how much fireworks is going up at one time, or cut it by time. And we decided that we should shave a couple of minutes off in order to save money. Nobody will notice that, but we don't want to mess with the display.
Right.
The number of the
So-
counties they're shooting off.
Yeah. So, the contract is for $12,500. It reads exactly the same as the previous contracts. Last year it was 10. And, and they require a 50% deposit by April 1. So,
Well, I'll make the motion to approve that Garth go ahead and enter the contract with American Fireworks in the amount of $12,500 for the town of Urbana's 2022 Independence Day celebration.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
All right, let's vote. Marjorie?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Bill? Mary?
Yes.
Yes. Mary, yes. Okay, so motion passes.
And just so you'll know, I've already talked to Ray, the fire department's in for doing the food like they normally do, and Kevin Gentry is gonna be supplying the music and the sound system.
Good.
Hey, Garth, can I backtrack for a second? One of the problems the fire department had in the past, staging the barbecue or the cookout down there, is electric services. And I think we upgraded it when I was there. But in your plan at the marina for upgrades, have y'all looked at the electric service at the marina and the wiring? Because we had some people here mention tonight that wiring is kind of falling down from underneath.
I think
Can I
that,
comment on that?
yes,
So one thing, the wires that were hanging under the dock, it was not electrical wires, that was wires from the Wi-Fi.
I got you.
that these, well, some guys put in, did a shabby job.
Yeah.
Craig took care of that about 3 months ago.
So it's not an
That's
issue.
taken care of. We are presently, we've already gone through all of the service boxes, and breakers,
Okay.
replacing them, and matter of fact, just did some last week. And also, we have purchased a ground fault testing unit.
Oh, good.
So we will be able to test every boat that comes in
Right.
for a ground fault. You know, if they've got faulty wiring, they don't get the hookup.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, so we are on
Yeah,
top
thanks
of
for
it.
that. That's good.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
no, these guys, I'll take the opportunity to speak to the board here. These guys have done, Dan and Craig and Joyce and have done a remarkable job of replacing boards, doing electrical work, remodeling the bathrooms, and I mean, they've done a really good job at what they do. So I thank y'all for that.
We collect those tickets and then kind of accumulate them and then send them in to the state for reimbursement.
Right.
Great.
We'll get to charge them more then.
You know what? I really don't. You're making money down at the marina in a way that we never were before the dredging was taking place.
Mhm.
So having the big boats down there is really. Thank you.
And the waterman.
And the waterman, yeah.
But the other thing that Mark mentioned was the new dock. We get a couple of new docks put in. It's not just a floating dock. That's to assist people with special needs. That's the marina's handicap slots.
Okay, well, you know what? There's grant. There's grant money for ADA, right, but we don't need it in that case. Because that's trail money. Okay, all right.
Okay, so announcements? No announcements, so that brings us to, we need to go into executive session.
You want me to announce the DMV Select?
Well,
Yeah. We brought Mary Bell Kimball on board as the DMV Select person, and I'll tell you, she's hit the ground running. And everything is all set up. DMV is gonna be here Monday, and she's already got 4. I think she's got one. Anyway, she's got a handful of appointments already. So DMV folks are gonna be here all week to assist her and show her the ropes and we're going live on Monday.
Hey, good job.
The sign is up.
Yeah.
There's one right out here. But she is also extremely strong and was very helpful in the move to this building.
The first time I heard you say that, Roy, you were
You're really
obviously
impressed.
I was
impressed.
impressed.
like strong women.
But was she strong?
Really strong.
I'd like to raise some issues that council and you should be aware of. one at the end of Town Bridge Road and one at Cook School. And then it would turn around and arrange with the Worcester Festival Foundation what kind of signage we could run. And somebody that's taken the idea that they would put a gang symbol on one of the signs.
What does that represent, you know?
I don't know, but I'm
Just
not
gang
telling you right
sign,
here.
yeah.
It's like, you know, it's obviously some kind of deterrent for the thing. But my point is, I don't know whether it might be a good idea for the town to kind of chase down where we are with that, where the UDA is with that one.
The deputies were in here at the beginning of the week. They've taken a report, and the lady that does the signage, she should have blacked that out by now. But anyway, she's redoing the sign. Now, Pam didn't know who was responsible for owning the sign.
Well, technically, the ownership lays with there's two separate owners. And we had them on the books at UVA when I was treasurer. And I just sent them checks once a year. Okay. And whatever we sent them, they said, great. And, they never wanted more money. It was pretty cheap. And the UVA paid to have the LED lighting installed. Right. Those things have been going for 8 years now, right? And they've never been changed. So my point is, it might be smart to approach the owners of the signs at UVA and say, hey, look at it. We don't want to lose the opportunity to continue to maintain and have some control over these signs. Do you all want to shift the lease so that the town can take it over? It's minimal cost. That way, if UVA goes sideways, you still got the sign, which helps to direct traffic to the town.
Yeah.
And also allows you to work constructively with the Oyster Festival and, finagle what kind of sign you would like to see up here. That's just my suggestion.
Okay.
Okay, and Steve, which group is it that you were saying had the 501c3 that we could funnel pool donations through?
That was
Oh, that was,
the Friends of Urbana.
Friends of Urbana.
Okay.
Yeah, and, I can get you Aubrey Hall's. Okay.
Okay, want to read that?
I move to go to closed meeting pursuant to, I guess it's both of these, isn't it? Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A1 for the following purpose: discussion or consideration or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, appointment, performance, and salary of specific public officer or appointees of the town council, and Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A29 for discussion of the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, including interviews of bidders and or offers, and discussion of the terms or scope of such contract, where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body water infrastructure contract.
Need a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, let's take a vote. Larry,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Mary,
Yes.
Marjorie?
Yes.
Yes, okay, Mary says yes, okay. Thank you, we are now going into closed session. Is there a door there?